This episode is the second in our series where we'll be showing you how to run the 100 meters from start to finish, with this episode detailing how to execute the 20 to 40 meter segment of the race. In the last episode detailing the first 20 meters of the race, I spoke about starting block setup, body position and arm movements when exiting the blocks, and rules of thumb for bringing your torso angle upright. I also spoke about how the majority of athletes will begin fully upright running within the 20 to 40 meter segment of the race, and in this video I'm going to be detailing the final stage of the transition and beginning of fully upright running. For many athletes and their coaches, 25 to 30 meters will be the range where they aim for fully upright running to commence. In the previous video, I used Jimmy Vico as an example of an athlete that began full upright running before the 20 meter mark in 11 to 12 steps during some of his fastest ever races. I also noted that around 15 steps is where a lot of elite sprinters begin full upright running, which I'll come back to later. But first I'd like to take a look at some examples of athletes who extend their drive phases beyond this typical range. Two athletes known for being masters of the drive phase were Maurice Greene and Asafa Powell, with Greene hitting full upright running 18 steps into the race in the 2000 Olympic final, although he didn't raise his head fully until he was 27 steps into the race. He completed the race in 45.5 steps, but only raised his head halfway through the race. However, his torso had been upright from after the 30 meter mark. While Greene didn't always require 18 steps to reach full upright running, Asafa Powell tended to extend his drive phase to between 18 to 20 steps, with him extending it all the way to 21 steps in his 9.74 race in Raythi in 2007. Powell's 40 meter split from this race was 4.65, and he appears to enter full upright running right around the 40 meter mark or slightly before it, showing that drive phases can be extended all the way out to 40 meters for athletes who have mastered their drive phase execution. Going even further than this, Powell had a race in Stuttgart in 2007 where he took 24 steps, reaching almost the 50 meter mark before he began full upright running, but that was an outlier relative to his usual race pattern. When the drive phase first became popularized, part of the reasoning behind its implementation was that it would allow the athlete to cover a large portion of the race while using less energy than they would if they were running upright, since putting force into the track when you're at an angle where gravity is pulling you down more takes less effort than trying to accelerate when your body is upright. In theory, this would mean that extending your drive phase would help you decelerate less in the later stages of the race, but with the majority of athletes not having the technical ability to execute an extended drive phase, the 30 meter segment before they reach their top speed, then have to maintain their speed for the rest of the race, is better spent running upright. If you want to stick to the most common race model of elite sprinters, then practicing a drive phase where your head and torso are straight up at your 16th step is a good benchmark, but you can refine it from this point to what suits you best individually. I spoke in the previous video about how horizontal force production is the key to acceleration, and while this horizontal force will be diminishing the further you get into the race as you become more upright, you should still be accelerating for the entirety of the first 40 meters of the race and beyond, so this video will still be dealing with the acceleration phase of the race. Picking up where we left off in the previous video at the 20 meter mark, you should still aim to be in your drive phase at this point, but also in the transition stage where you're preparing to enter upright running. After the 20 meter mark, you should reduce the forward range of motion of your arm swing so that it's no longer travelling past the front of your body. You should be making a conscious effort to straighten up your torso and in turn lift your head up so that you're looking straight down the track without making any sudden jerks in movement from over eagerness to enter the next phase of your race. In turn, your knee lift should reach its natural level, which will be maintained for the remainder of the race. It's at this point that some athletes will make a conscious effort to trigger whatever mental cues they have prepared for executing their desired leg cycle. At the elite level, athletes will have practiced so much that their leg cycle will become second nature to them and almost automatic without thinking about it, but many athletes will have to concentrate on achieving their desired leg cycle when they run. Some mental cues that athletes may have is to make a conscious effort to keep their knee lift high if they have a tendency to run with a low knee lift, or focus on keeping their backside mechanics tidy so that their leg doesn't trail behind them excessively, leading to wasted movement. The height of a person's knee lift is entirely athlete specific, and there are coaches who suggest that the knee lift height comes as a natural result of the leg rebounding from the force applied to the ground, rather than the knee lift height being something that an athlete has to forcefully aim for. There are of course instances where an athlete's knee lift can reduce in the later stages of the race due to form breakdown, but we'll look at that in a future video. I don't suggest that there are any mental cues that all athletes should adopt, since being a frontside dominant sprinter or being a backside dominant sprinter doesn't necessarily mean your technique is any more efficient than the other, since either technique can be more beneficial depending on the athlete, and athletes at both ends of the spectrum have seen success winning global medals. One element of the leg cycle that all athletes should strive for, however, is that once you have entered full upright running, your foot should be landing directly under your centre of mass for optimal sprinting efficiency, creating a straight line from your foot up through your leg and torso. Keeping your leg straight as your foot strikes the ground under your centre of mass allows for the highest amount of force to be transferred into the ground and returned. If your knee is bent when your foot hits the ground, it means there's less stiffness present, causing more force to be absorbed, so less of the force that you put into the ground will be returned to propel you down the track. When your foot comes in contact with the ground, the knees of both legs should ideally be aligned with each other, and this creates a visual that's often referred to as the figure 4. Something else to note is that in the 20 to 40 meter stage, you should still focus on maximising your stride length while you're still in your dry phase, but not to the same degree as the first 20 meters, where you need to consciously take long steps because you haven't yet built up the momentum to make your stride length reach its automatic form. As far as mental cues are concerned for the upper body, I do suggest that athletes who have a tendency to run with an untidy arm swing should focus on keeping it as strict and consistent as possible, since it's easy to forget about when trying to keep your legs moving as quickly as possible. It's also possible to not be forceful enough with your arm swings, which is suboptimal since most sprinters at the elite level have powerful arms and shoulders either directly or indirectly from their arm movements. I have already mentioned that once you've entered full upright running, your arm doesn't need to be travelling beyond your torso when swinging forward, as it's wasted movement, but when your arm is swinging backwards, you can swing all the way back as close as 90 degrees as possible, since that larger range of motion allows the swing to be more forceful in generating momentum. While athletes like Usain Bolt and Asafa Powell came close to reaching 90 degrees with their arm swings, there were also elite athletes who opted for lesser angles. By the time you reach the 40 meter mark, you should be in the flow of upright running with your final leg cycle motion and arm swing motion that you'll maintain for the rest of the race locked in, and you should still be in a position where you're accelerating, despite horizontal force production now being much less than it was at the start of the race. In my next video, I'll be talking about how to execute the 40 to 60 meter segment of a 100 meter race, so please subscribe for future videos and thanks for watching.